Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to Heroes of the Storm. It is March, a new patch has just come out, and we get Sylvanas Windrunner, the Banshee Queen from World of Warcraft, or Warcraft 3 lore, depending upon how you want to look at it. Before I jump right into her, though, I just kind of wanted to show off some of the new features. I mean, take a look at this. This is actually looking pretty good. This is the new user interface for Heroes of the Storm, and you can see the front page splash screen. It's no longer a static image. We can actually take a look at Sylvanas, see her 3D model, and it's animated for us right in front of us here. So it's not just a static pixely picture anymore. The UI has been cleaned up a bit. The logo's been updated just a bit too. It's mostly the same, except for the words are kind of arched with the word Heroes. So Of the Storm is actually arched. It looks a little cleaner. We also here get at the top is a little more organized. You can see we have our party buttons here that you can click on. Any pluses to add someone to your party if they're in your friends list, if you so desire. Looking for party is still here. They have the forum feedback button still. What's really nice is that when the new character is out, you'll see not the picture here, but you can also go to the shop to pick them up immediately if you so desire, or just go try the hero. They actually have a try hero button right there. So when a new hero comes out, you can say, well, they look interesting. Just click that button. It'll take you right into a little tryout mode, just that I normally use to show off the abilities for the characters, and so you can always try it for yourself. I think that's pretty cool. Gold has been kind of moved up here along with the portrait. The user portraits or user info is much the same as it was last patch, but it still looks pretty nice. A few things that have been added. I like being right when it's about the right things. You may have heard me mention several times that I wish they would put gold back into the system when you're leveling up your player level, so that players would have a nice starting amount of cash to buy some starting heroes. Well, they did it. They finally did it. So past level 15, you can see at 20 and 25, also at 30 and 35, you get some additional gold, and at 40. So there's a whole bunch of additional gold to be had here. Also, in hero progression, they went beyond level 10. You can now get levels 15 and 20, which, trust me, will take a while. But when you do hit 15 and 20, you get, as you can see, 1,200 and 2,500 gold. So playing one hero over and over again will give you some pretty nice rewards. Even if you weren't intending to buy anything, you might eventually, now that there's all these additional levels for the characters. Also at the top, you get the XP bonus and the Stim Pack bonus buttons that will light up. It's much easier to tell when you have a bonus in effect. I happen to have a Stim Pack because that was added in the player progression. Let me show that again because I didn't mention that. That's here at level 10. You get a 7-day Stim Pack for free, so I happen to have one active. Also, this transition, check this out. I like that. That looks really cool. More polish is getting into the game. I'm sure we're getting closer and closer to a release, which is what I like to see. So without further ado, since you're here for Sylvanas, let's go ahead and go to the shop, take a look at her, so you can see what she's all about. So this is Sylvanas, her base skin. So I'll go ahead and show those off first. Base skin with color variants. Base and then a white. And then a red. I kind of like the red variant, actually. The white one, not so much, but the red one looks good. Her master skin.
Unleash me.
And then there is the Ranger General Sylvanas. As every hero comes with a purchasable skin when they're released. Or so that's been the trend. Alright, let's go ahead and go in and take a look at her. Alright, here we are with Sylvanas in the game. You get a look at her model as I move her around. She is a standard character, so she does have the standard mount mechanics. Nothing unique there. But if I were to describe Sylvanas, what word would I use? Unfortunately, that word would probably be overpowered. And I don't mean that in the fact that can she like take out the entire 5-man team by herself? No. Does she always win in one-on-one fights? No. She's still kind of squishy. She's a ranged specialist, but she has this amazing power to take out buildings and creep line. And she almost has the backdoor ability that Murky had. Maybe not quite as strong, but she has a very strong capability for it. And she makes pushing in a lane almost to the point of being unfair when you're fighting against her. Let me show this. Let me show off the main mechanic that does this, and you'll see what I mean. She has this black arrow trait, which is really cool. It's a completely new type of mechanic thing. It's basic attacks and abilities will stun minions, mercenaries, and towers for 1 second. So I can shut down, for a second, towers. And so if I alternate my fire, as you can kind of see here, I can kind of keep these towers from firing. And that's not even the only way. The way I use my abilities, so if I just kind of alternate my abilities, you see, I don't even have to change the shot that I'm firing. I can use one of my abilities and constantly be hitting the tower next to me. All right, yeah, that seems pretty bad. Well, that's not the end of it. Let's go, and I'll show off the abilities a bit later though. But let me just kind of show how this is, how bad this can be. This is me taking on a keep. As you can see, no damage at all coming my way because every single basic attack is stopping it from attacking. It's completely frozen. It can do nothing against me. By itself, as you can see, it's not terrible because I'm not doing a ton of damage myself, but I'm shutting it down. And so that means that if I've got a wave of creep with me at the moment, then I've got the creep and my damage going in. What if I'm with my entire party, right? The entire group pushing in one lane. She can shut down the tower. And usually what stops people from being super aggressive in a lane is that ability for a tower to still kind of do some damage. Now, you can push against towers with a group of people, but sometimes it can hurt a bit, and you might not be able to stay in there, especially since the towers slow down attack speeds and movement speeds of anybody that they hit. So there's still kind of a danger there. There's a risk. Sylvanas completely negates that. I think she's got a really cool talent, this trait thing of black arrows. I think it's really good, but I think it may be just a little bit too powerful at the moment. I expect to see in a future patch some nerfing on this. It may not happen on every basic attack, or it may be that basic attacks will only affect minions and mercenaries, not towers and keeps. Those seem to be the two ways that would actually bring her into balance. Because her power beyond that is not bad. She can have the punch of an assassin, even though she's a specialist, if you play her and build her right. But at the same time, she's, again, still kind of squishy. Her biggest strength lies in the fact that she can decimate creep lines with mercenaries in those creep lines. You can absolutely shut something down in a quick burst of damage, absolutely wreck a line of creep and minions. So how does she do that? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at her abilities and talents. Now, I apologize. Normally, I don't interject kind of an opinion piece when it comes to looking at the abilities of a character, but Sylvanas is very new, and I kind of wanted to point this out that she is very powerful right now, but please expect changes, because part of this review of a character and looking at the abilities is also kind of a buyer's guide thing, because it's a lot of money to buy a character when they first come out. They're like 1,500 gold. Or I'm sorry, 15,000. 1,500 would be nice. They're 15,000 gold when they first come out, and $10 of real money. So I want to make sure you're going to get your bang for your buck, because I don't want you to expect her to be as strong as she is later, because I'm pretty sure it'll change. How it'll change, I'm not sure. Maybe some of the changes I suggested, maybe in another way. So the first ability she comes with is this thing called Withering Fire. It has a 2-second cooldown, and it holds 5 charges. So anytime I use it, it will regenerate every 2 seconds another charge. So I'll go ahead and blow all 5 by moving close. And you'll see charge every 2 seconds, another charge. Now, it also gets charges when enemy minions or mercenaries die. You get an additional charge from their death. So that is why she is a specialist. She is very much specialized in doing damage to creep lines and to mercenaries. She is probably one of the most amazing junglers next to Gazlo. I would dare say in the very beginning of the game she's better than Gazlo, because she can completely shut down siege camps from level 1. So she can actually put a siege camp into play immediately because she will never take damage from them. She can gain 3 charges of this when a hero is killed, and that's pretty powerful. As you saw, you can fire it off pretty quickly. When you hit Q, I'll go ahead and toggle some minions here. When you hit Q, it fires off 1 shot. If you hold down Q, it fires off the entire barrage in a very quick succession. There is no cooldown on this, so I'll just show it off. I'll hit Q. You'll see there's a shot. I don't have a lot of control over where it goes. When you hit Q, it hits the nearest target. Here at level 20, you can see it does about 85 damage. That's not a lot, but when you consider you've got all 5 charges, and they come back every 2 seconds, and they come back when mercenaries and creep die around you, this can actually start to stack up and add a lot of damage. It's not to be underestimated, and I think a lot of people do. You'll see the purple kind of targeter there. That's where it's going to go. The only way I have control over this is by standing nearby something and looking for the targeter. And if you see, as you can see, if I hold it down, it will keep firing. And much like Lily's healing, as I hold down Q, it will fire every time a stack comes up. So you should never have to worry about missing it as long as you hold down the attack. Very powerful. All of her abilities, just like her basic attacks, will add the black arrow debuff to minions. As you can see there, I can hit and debuff and stop them from attacking. That's how I can take out 2 towers at once, by standing near it. You see the purple there, and I can fire at one and keep using Withering Fire to keep the other one locked. So if I wait every couple seconds and hit Q, you can see I can keep one down with auto attacks and keep one down with Withering Fire. So you can split your focus, and that's how you can keep a siege camp from killing you. You attack one while using Withering Fire to attack the other. Or you can just alternate your attacks by click, 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 click. If you want, you certainly can do that, but it's easier when you use Withering Fire.
Done.
Her next ability is a Shadow Dagger. Well, actually, before I go on, I'll show you. Here's the Withering Fire range using our trees of measurement, or our bushes of measurement. You can see it goes out to a length of about 3. So it's got a pretty decent range, and it can be improved with talents. All right, the next one is the Shadow Dagger. This one we can see has a bit further out, goes almost to the very end of these bushes here from where I'm standing. Withering Fire has no mana cost, by the way, so there is no penalty for holding it down, other than the fact that if you use it as you get it, you lose a little bit of burst. So that's what you'll keep in mind. Shadow Dagger does have mana cost. It has a 10-second cooldown, so it's a very quick cooldown. At this level, it does 80 damage and an additional 320 over 2 to a target unit. And the effect spreads. So the initial damage is not a lot. So you really don't have to worry about who your first target is when you use this, because the initial damage, it's not great, but it will add up. It makes it 400 damage all told if you hit the initial target, because of 320 over 2. The 320 over 2 is the big part, and the best part is that it spreads. So if I hit this minion, you'll see it just jumped to the other 2, did a bunch of damage, and completely shut down that wave. And this is why Sylvanas can shut down an entire wave of enemies. Like if you've got even 2 waves, maybe 3 waves stacked up, plus the knights added in there, it doesn't matter. For 2 seconds, you can completely shut down the lane while doing a whole bunch of damage to it. Let's go ahead and toggle it again. I'll show you. What I'll do is I'm going to hit them as they're coming out the door here. And there it goes. It's spreading all to the minions, and it even spreads to the tower and to Arthas. That is a lot of power. And this is where, again, I say she's just a bit overpowered, because Sylvanas has that punch. She can do damage like an assassin, but she can also shut down a lane of creep. And I half wonder if maybe she has too much power all over the place. Since she can shut down a line, shut down the NPCs, and do a lot of damage to players, it seems like there might be a bit too much going on in her kit at the moment. Although I do like how the kit works. Again, maybe if the basic attacks lose it so that you're not always shutting down forts, that might not be too bad. We'll have to see. The final ability is Haunting Wave. 75 mana, 11-second cooldown. This is a pretty interesting mechanic, as it is both your chase, your escape, and it does damage, plus it applies Black Arrow. You can use this to stun minion waves. It sends forth a wave of Banshees. They do 250 damage to all targets, and you can reactivate it to teleport to the Banshee's location. And you can see it's got a pretty decent range. It's got a very small cone, but I can actually use it, fire it, and there it went to all the minions, put the Black Arrow debuff on them, and then I could teleport behind them. And just take a look at that damage I did to Arthas with the burst, and then I'll just go ahead and do this, and I can chase. That's the other thing. She's amazing at chase. She has some absolutely fantastic chasing capabilities, much like a lot of the assassins. She, if it weren't for Black Arrow, I would say she's probably an assassin. But Black Arrow is what makes her a specialist. And Black Arrow is the thing that will allow you to just absolutely push. She is a huge pushing rival to characters like Zagara and Asmodan. She can really push the damage forward and do it fairly efficiently. Alright, so we've looked at her basic abilities. Let's go ahead and look at her level 10 abilities, her ultimates. She's got some pretty interesting ones. She has Wailing Arrow. Wailing Arrow is the first choice. This is the one where you shoot an arrow that explodes for 600 damage. It silences enemies for 2.5 seconds. It can be activated to detonate early. So this is pretty cool.
Give the order.
Pretty decent range using our trees of measurement. You can see it goes beyond them and quite a bit beyond. So we'll go ahead and fire it off, and you see there it is, an arrow, and then it explodes at the end of its flight path. Once again, there it is, and explodes in its flight path. But much like I would compare her to Isis of Smite, because it's the closest thing I can think of. Probably there are some other comparisons you could draw to League of Legends or Dota, but you can blow it up early. So if someone's on top of you and you need to quickly hit them and silence them, you can just hit the button again, and anywhere along its flight path, you can blow it up. And so you can actually blow it up right on top of you. It does a decent amount of damage, but its big thing is that 2.5 second silence. She is, I can't say this for certain, but at this point I believe only one of 2 characters that absolutely has a silence as a CC component, and both of those are on ultimates. The other one I believe is Malfurion, who has his Emerald Dream silence. And this, I'm going to tell you, these are amazing crowd control that you can't take lightly. You can still move, and you can still attack, but the loss of your abilities is absolutely major, and it is a huge component to shutting down healers. Since healing is so strong in the game, Sylvanas can engage and start an engagement by shooting a healer, getting them silent, and then helping the team kill that healer or anyone that you want to kill at the time, since the healing is a non-factor at that moment. So Wailing Arrow can be a very powerful tool for engaging the enemy.
Choose a talent.
At level 20, you can upgrade it with Deafening Blast. Deafening Blast will make it so that enemies in the center of the explosion take 50% more damage, and they're silenced for twice as long. So not only is 2.5 seconds feel like an eternity when you're a healer, you bring that up to 5 seconds if you hit them with the center. Not only that, but 50% more damage is 300 more damage on top of this. Again, keep in mind we're sitting at level 20 right now. But that's 900 damage. That's a big chunk. Well, let's go ahead and fire it so you can see where the center of it is. You can kind of see the smaller circle when I fire it. That little circle there is your center area. Although you have to, when you look at it, you notice the when the explosion happens, the black part on the ground looks like the explosion is a little further out. So I'm not 100% sure where this ends up. Let's go ahead and toggle the minions and see if we can't get a better gauge of that. What we'll do is we will try and intentionally get just maybe one of these minions in the center. So like, let's just hit it there, and there's 600 to all. And we'll clear cooldowns, and we'll toggle the minions once again.
Forward.
And let's see if we can just maybe get one on the outer edge. So there's 600 there. So that is definitely within the outer edge. And then there, and okay, so it looks like the animation here on the flying arrow is what you're looking for. So in that inner area, and there Arthas is now shut down for 5 seconds, where he can't use his abilities. And so I mentioned healers. That's a really strong anti-healer thing. but it's also very strong against characters that have really good escape. Characters like Vala that can vault around, or Zeratul who can quickly blink to try and get out. You can shut that person down for 5 seconds and suddenly they are much more vulnerable than they realized they were. Alright, let's look at the other ultimate, and this is what makes Sylvanas truly interesting, and oddly enough, even though I've called Sylvanas overpowered at this point, probably one of the places where she needs a little bit of a buff. This ultimate is Possession. It's 20 mana on a 4-second cooldown, so it's very short. You force a minion to fight for you, and it gains 20% attack damage and health. The cooldown increases to 20 seconds when used on catapults. So what this really can be considered is almost like a reintroduction of a permanent promote, right? Although promote gives a huge amount of damage and health, this only gives a smaller amount, so 20%. But it's permanent, unlike promote, because you're taking an enemy from the line. You're taking one of their minions, and you're turning it into a more powerful version of your own. The things get really crazy when you start to steal catapults, and that's why it gets a 20-second increase, which is very much understandable because catapults are an amazing source of damage as it is. To give them 20% increased attack, damage, and health makes them really strong, especially if the enemy is ignoring their existence, which they shouldn't if they're smart. But I kind of say that this might need a buff because even though it's on a 4-second cooldown, by the time you get it back, especially at higher levels, you're going to pretty much kill an enemy wave right away and not have a real good chance to use it more than once. The good news is, as you can see, I just used it on that minion. It healed that minion up to full immediately. So I can use it and get another minion. And as you saw there, I mean, that was nice, but I'm not gaining too much out of it because the minions still die very quickly at this level. This may need a bit of a punch in the arm. Maybe increasing the power that it gives to minions, and possibly even if doing that, may even increase the cooldown. Because 4 seconds, you can really turn around a line pretty quickly and pretty easily by doing that. At level 10, you're not killing minions as quickly as I am now, but they still die relatively quick, and it seems like this is okay, but when you consider the usefulness and the utility of the other arrow, the other ultimate, sorry, the Wailing arrow, this really just doesn't quite seem to have the punch that it needs. Wailing arrow is just so strong as an ultimate compared to Possession. This is useful in a catapult lane when you're stealing catapults, certainly, but your mileage is really, it's going to be very difficult to really, I think, effectively use this. Possession doesn't really get good until level 20, unfortunately, and even then it's situational. So you get Possession, and it's not going to be that great until catapults come, but the enemy has to get all the way back to your base and destroy your primary keep before you get catapults thrown against you, and at that point you're already behind. So Possession becomes kind of this turnaround thing at that point. That's great, but again, you kind of have to be behind, and you would rather not fall behind, and to do that, you probably want something strong like Wailing Arrow. And that said, again, getting it level 20, there's an upgrade to it, which is great. It's Dark Lady's Call. This is a fantastic upgrade, but again, it's very situational, and you only get it at the end of the game. This increases the attack damage and health bonus to 30%, so from 20 to 30%, a 10% increase. But it also allows the possession of mercenaries with a 20-second cooldown. So if they throw siege camps at you, you can possess, since there's two, possess one of them, and it puts it on a 20-second cooldown. So you're not going to get both, because a 20-second cooldown, by then you've killed the other one. So you might as well possess one and kill the other. That's great. This is an amazing mechanic. It shuts down enemy mercenary pushes, but that's why it's so... It's one of those things that just... it's situational. The enemy has to be putting mercenaries in your line, and it has to be in-game. It has to be level 20, or you can't do it. So what I am thinking is maybe they need to tone down her anti-building mechanic of her Black Arrow. Maybe take it off of her basic attack. From there, make some changes to possession. Maybe add the ability to possess mercenaries at the level 10 version to make it a really good ultimate, but maybe just increase the cooldown in general to 20 seconds. Maybe increase the damage and health that it gives a possessed minion from a base level, and then maybe make Dark Lady's Call have charges or something like that, so that when an enemy does throw a set of siege minions at you, you can get both. So maybe give it 2 charges with Dark Lady's Call. That way you can steal 2 of siege minions if they're thrown at you, but if it's a night camp, you can still only steal 2 of the 5. I would like to hear some suggestions on that one, because I really feel that possession at its base level is not that strong, whereas Dark Lady's Call is a really great way to punish enemies for laning. Like, if you're fighting an enemy team and they're pushing against you with like a Gazlo, or they're pushing against you with Mercenary Lord or something like that, and they're just really doing strong mercenary pushes, this is a fantastic way to turn that around. It's the first character that really allows you to do that, other than just flat out killing them. You can actually take their strategy and turn it around to punish them. I like that idea, but I think that you got to be very careful, because if they buff this too much, it will become far too powerful. And at the same time, she's already way too powerful against buildings. So they're going to have to really consider how they do this. Now, I would show it off here. Unfortunately, there's no mercenary camps in tri-mode, so really the only thing you're not going to see at this point is the fact that it gains a 10% additional damage buff. And that's it. So that's all the basics of Sylvanas. We'll go ahead and go over her talents and talk about how useful they can be. Alright, level 1, first talent, with the wind. Increases the firing range of your withering fire. We looked at it before. You can kind of see it goes out to about the... Let's go back out to the 3rd bush here, whereas the Shadow Dagger goes out to the full distance. If we increase the range, you'll see it's really not that big of a difference. It's a very minor. It's only like half the bush. So Shadow Dagger is still going to have a larger range. However, a longer range on Withering Fire can be kind of useful, because it gives you that chance to get in and fire it on enemies. Keep in mind that Withering Fire prefers heroes. It will target them if it has the opportunity. So it's a good way of keeping your distance a little bit further while being able to throw out the damage. Good alternatives here, though. There's Lost Soul. This reduces the cooldown of Shadow Dagger by 2 seconds. Now, Shadow Dagger is already pretty good. It completely shuts down a lane for 1 second at a minimum, because of the Black Arrow debuff it puts on, and it does a decent amount of damage. It's already on a 10-second cooldown, so you can bring that down to 8. Now, this synergizes pretty well with some other talents, such as, I'll be right around level 16. This is the big one. You can actually add vulnerability to the dagger, so you can use that more often. So this is a very good alternative. Beyond that, you have Barb Shot. Withering Fire will do triple damage to minions and mercenaries. It's 200% bonus damage, so this will actually do 3 times as much. So here at level 1, you kind of look at what it does. It does 28 damage per shot. You take that with the Barb Shot. You're looking at roughly 90 damage on 1 shot, and you get 5 shots. So Barb Shot, that's like the starting build of anti-mercenary, anti-lane, and that's really powerful. Now we go a step further into Sylvanas, who's already a monster against buildings, and look at this. You have Corruption. Basic attacks against structures will destroy 2 ammunition. This is a pretty standard trait for the old Demolitionist trait. It's just very unique to her in the fact that it's added to her Black Arrow. And Demolitionist has actually been taken off quite a few heroes. Like Raynor used to have it. He doesn't even have it anymore. So she gets it in the form of this Corruption. And that's amazingly strong. Since she already shuts down towers from firing, she can then blow the ammo off of it, which to me seems a little redundant. I mean, you go up against the tower, and if you do it right, you can see here I'm not going to get hit by the other one. And here I am fighting this tower. I don't really need to kill its ammo. However, it's not always, you're not always going to get this kind of opportunity. Enemy players are going to usually try and stop you from doing this, so eventually that tower is going to be able to fire anyway. So while it seems a little bit overkill, it still can be useful if you use it right. But I'll be quite honest, I think any of the others are very good alternatives. Getting the better cooldown on the Shadow Dagger, getting more damage on the Barb Shot, or even getting increased range on the Withering Fire to chase a little bit better can all be great ideas. So let's go ahead and move on to level 4 and take a look. Well, level 4 comes with a very basic assassin ability, quite honestly. This is Envenom, damage over time. Early game, very, very powerful. Late game, not so much. Against tanks, not very useful. It's really great against people that can cloak to stop them from cloaking. It's one of those talents that I really kind of wish they'd stop putting in. I would like to actually see that just taken out and just leave the others. It's a pretty basic assassin talent, but which is kind of odd to see it on Sylvanas again, being her being a specialist. All right, moving on though, we have Paralysis, which increases the duration of Black Arrow by 100%. Black Arrow shuts a lane down for 1 second. With Paralysis, you can shut it down for 2. That is an amazing amount of shutdown. 2 whole seconds of an entire lane, especially if that lane is being pushed heavily. And not only that, but if you modify any of these abilities, like you give vulnerability or something like that, or you allow the black arrow to explode or something like that, it gives you more chances for that to happen. So this is really powerful if you're going for an anti-creep build. Even though you don't necessarily need it when you're doing single target damage, again, showing off the example with the tower, I can shut this tower down because her attack speed is already pretty good. Does it actually show her speed? Yeah, 1.67. So she's already attacking 50% faster than she needs to keep the debuff up on her own. So you might think, oh, well, you really don't need an additional second, but that's why I bring up the abilities. Something like your Shadow Dagger will shut the entire lane down now for 2 seconds, which can be a massive boon for pushing back. So I really think that's a good one. It can be quite useful. It can be quite useful. Now, here's Overflowing Quiver. This is an odd one, and I think it's kind of neat, but at the same time, if you're really good about using your abilities, it's one you're probably not going to use. Whenever you would gain a Withering Fire charge from killing a minion or hero, and you're already at maximum charges, those charges are automatically fired. That's really great if you're not good about keeping up on it, because then as you're killing a line, you're just going to pop, 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 and you'll be firing them off whenever you get full stacks. Which can be great because if you're about to, say, maybe kill a hero and you're in a group fight, you kill that hero, that's 3 stacks. If you're at full, that's 3 arrows that just went out. Free damage. But at the same time, you're probably putting those out on your own anyway. So this talent doesn't seem like a great choice, but I think that's going to be your own personal experience on that. Some people are just not really that great at remembering to hit the button when they need to, or may not be as dexterous to hold the button down the entire time. So that's really going to be a personal choice, I think. But the other two, Paralysis and Ranger's Ambush, are probably the better ones. And Venom's actually pretty good too. It's just not a talent I like when it comes to the way it works in the game. But speaking of Ranger's Ambush, let's take a look at it. Using a Haunting Wave to teleport will refresh all charges of Withering Fire.
Victory draws near.
So this can be very useful for chasing,
Forward.
especially. So come in here, I'm going to blow all of my attacks, and then I've lost all my arrows, so I teleport, and then I get them back. So if you're chasing an enemy down and you need to do a lot of damage, you can use your entire stock of Withering Fire, teleport, and then use your stock again. I would see this as mostly an offensive talent, though you could potentially use it defensively if you teleport away and need to fire them off. So what this is going to do is kind of change your focus of using Haunting Wave. I usually use this for defense. Even though it can do a decent amount of damage, if I'm doing well, yeah, I'll throw this against a wave to stun it with Black Arrow, especially if I've got the, well, you can't get the duration at the same time, but you can use that to push out against a wave and stun it. But I typically tend to use it as a retreat because, yeah, Sylvanas can be kind of squishy, and it's a great teleport because it allows you to teleport past walls. Not a lot of characters really have that. A lot of characters have charges, not actual teleports and blinks. So this gives her an additional set of movement, a range of movement that a lot of other characters won't have. So I tend to use it in that manner, mostly for defense though because of her squishiness. But you can really set her off to be offensive, which is pretty cool. I like the fact that they have talents like that to allow you to decide how you want to go.
My will is my own.
When we upgrade to rank 7, we can see there are 5 talents here, so this is a pretty loaded tier. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the basic ones. So there's Mercenary Lord. Mercenaries become 50% stronger when you're in the lane. This is obviously I would say it's obviously a good choice for someone like her because she's a specialist, right? A lot of specialists get Mercenary Lord. She's very good at taking mercenaries and pushing them in the lane, especially with possession. So if you're going for a possession build, you could potentially use this and just throw out a whole bunch of damage against the enemy with making the mercenaries stronger. It's kind of nice. It was one of those talents where I kind of liked it because it was one of those fire and forget things. You capture and it goes off. But that was kind of annoying because you might get allies that capture a mercenary camp forgetting that you have it or not even knowing that you have it, and it created a really awkwardness to the gameplay. So I think it's good that they changed it, but I'm not so sure it's a great one for her because she's got some pretty other good talents on this level. Follow through, a basic ability or a basic talent. Again, oddly that it would be an assassin talent considering she's a ranged specialist, but here it is. This is amazingly powerful for her because she has an ability that stacks. You get 25% additional damage on your next basic attack when you use an ability. And it doesn't have a cooldown, which means you can empower yourself multiple times, more so than any other assassin, really, I would say. Because here I'm going to do, let's see, what am I doing? 72, fire it off. 72, fire it off, 90, 72, 90, 72, 90. And you can see I just alternate it, and I'm getting that bonus to my damage every time I use Withering Fire. And that comes back every 2 seconds. And if I just time it right, I can keep using it like between shots. If I weave it between my shots, I'm not wasting it. Now, if I blow them all at once, yeah, I'm wasting it. But she attacks, well, we saw, what, 1.5 times a second? So you can weave it in between her shots fairly well. If you have the skill for it, you could make that almost automatic, probably muscle memory. So that is where a lot of power for her can come from. She also has unstable poison as a trait. Minions and mercenaries that die under the effect of black arrows explode. Now this is one of my favorites. It does 138 damage at this level. Let me refresh this level.
Choose a talent.
All right, I'm going to go for kind of anti-minion to show exactly how powerful this is. Triple damage on Withering Fire, increase the duration, and then we will get the Explode on Death. And I can just show you how quickly you can start taking out a lane when you're doing something like this. So we've got a minion here that we're going to go ahead and hit, and then we're going to fire... Well, Withering Fire went for Arthas, but you can see he blew up. And then there's just additional damage going on. Let me hit the middle one, hit the middle archer, and you can kind of see him explode and hurt his guys around him.
I'm listening.
At this level, it's not going to kill them instantly, but I think you can see the amount of damage that can put out. You can, by level 20, with that ability, just completely tear through a line. Like, you can run to a line, use all 5 charges of your Withering Fire, basically, and you've killed the entire lane. So in one shot, boom, everything is dead. Other talents, Life Drain. The Shadow Dagger will heal you for each enemy hit. You can see here it's about 34 at this level, so it's not a lot, but it spreads, what, about 6 to 7 times. If they're close to the towers, you can be 8. So you can get maybe close to 10. That's about 340. That's not a terrible amount of health, maybe about a third. Not even a third, though, really. Quarter, maybe? That's not bad, but I think it's one of those things that it's not going to be as easy to predict, and it's not going to be readily available because you've got to have the enemies to hit. So usually you're waiting for a creep line for this one. This can be good for sustain, though. But quite honestly, looking at your options of Black Arrow exploding and follow-through for more damage every other hit, or even Mercenary Lord, I don't think that one's going to be great. Her last one, though, Shade Form, is pretty good, too. This one is going to be kind of your escape mechanism if you want to build a Sylvanas that's maybe a little bit more defensive, or maybe you've been having some trouble and you need to have a little bit more evasion in your kit. This one's not too bad. This allows Haunting Wave to grant stealth for 3 seconds. And that is when you fire it. So I can fire it off and see now I have stealth. Using the teleport does not break the stealth. So you can be doing this and look like you're running in one direction but teleport back. This can be good, but keep in mind that stealth in this game is not perfect. when you disappear, you don't completely disappear. You still shimmer. So enemies can still see you. The benefit of stealth, though, is they can't target you outside of skill shots. They have to hit you with a skill shot, but they can't hit you with automatic abilities. Like, I couldn't hit someone with Shadow Dagger, and Shadow Dagger won't bounce to someone that's in stealth. I don't believe. That's something I would have to do further testing on. Usually bounce mechanics don't bounce to stealth characters because they're considered non-targetable at that point. So it still can be useful for getting away. But not only that, but even though you shimmer, when you teleport quickly, sometimes they might not be able to track that movement. So it still can be quite useful for getting away. Not the best talent, but it can be useful if you need it. Alright, we've already looked at level 10. Let's go ahead and look at the talents for level 13, because obviously we've already talked about the heroics. So, 13, let's just grab a few basic things here. 13. Overwhelming Affliction. Black arrows will slow heroes. So this will now allow your Black Arrow talent to add a stacking debuff to the enemy. It slows their movement speed by 5%, and you can stack it up to 5 times. This includes abilities, so it can be real quick and easy to slow them down. I mean, 5 shots is easily obtainable with Withering Fire. You put all 5 Withering Fire shots, and you've just slowed the enemy by 25%. If you need to slow them down in order to chase, that's a pretty good one. Before I look at the others, let's just go ahead and look at the other kind of generic talent, Spell Shield, which reduces damage from abilities when you've gotten hit. This is pretty standard. It's like on a lot of people's kits. It's really there for anti-burst, usually things like anti-nova, maybe even anti-thrall with his, well, you know, I have never really tested that if it works with Wind Fury or not, because Wind Fury just technically makes you attack faster. I don't know if that would really work out. But yeah, this is a standard ability, so we don't need to worry about that too much. So the other two are Withering Fire mods. You have Evasive Fire, where you gain a 10% movement speed for 2 seconds whenever an enemy is hit. It stacks up to 30%, so you only need to hit 3 times, and you've got a 30% movement speed buff. So you've got a choice here. Do you slow the enemy, or do you speed yourself up? This makes me think of something Abathur has, him being another specialist. He's got something very similar, except for he puts his parasite up, and he puts a shield on an ally. That shield can be used to speed your ally up, or he has a talent on that same tier where if he hits an enemy with one of his abilities, it slows the enemy. So really what you have here is it going to be a very personal thing where you're going to be moving quicker, which you can then use for defense, or is it going to be or for chasing? I mean, you can still use it offensively. That's great. But usually the better option if you want an offensive is to slow the enemy, because then your allies can catch up. If you're chasing and you're moving faster, then you're going to outstrip your allies, and you're going to get further away, which is problematic because then you're possibly going to get led into a trap, and your team's not going to be anywhere nearby to help you. Slowing the enemy is usually the better option because it allows your team to catch up and allows the damage to stack up and keeps them from getting past valuable assets like walls in order to get away. The thing about slows versus speed ups, though, is that as you can see, it takes a little bit longer for your slowdowns to occur on the enemy than it does for you to speed yourself up. So it takes a little bit longer, but it can definitely help out in the long run. The other mod is Splinter Shot. Withering Fire will hit a second target for 48 damage, which if we look here, it's 64 damage at this level. So it's not full damage. But the fact that it hits a second target can be quite useful. If you're going for lane clear, this is kind of the one I like. Because if I'm going for lane clear, then this will just let me start tearing through a lane. Now, you have to keep in mind, as well, the Splintering Shot will apply the Black Arrow debuff to your target. So if I come in here, I could potentially shut down both of these towers. Okay, I'm going to auto-attack the gate. And here I am auto-attacking the gate while keeping both towers in check because of the Splinter. Sure, the Splinter isn't doing as much damage, but I don't need it to. I'm using it to shut down my opponent. Very, very useful. All right, 16. 16. What do we have? We have Windrunner. After you teleport from Haunting Wave, you can cast a second one for free within 2 seconds. Very nice for needing to get away, but there is something you might want to look at when you're doing this. Your running speed is not that much slower than the Banshees when you push them out. Alright, so if you're really going to escape with this, or use it for an escape mechanic, which allowing you to cast again kind of is,
Forward.
you probably want to play a little bit of misdirection with it, or use it as a teleport through walls. Those are really going to be your best options. Running with it, probably not going to help you, or only going to get a minor boost from that. But if you use a little misdirection, because the enemy might expect you to teleport, so what you can do is throw out the Banshees and turn around. If an enemy is chasing you, instead of firing them forward, fire your Banshees behind you and see if the enemy turns around. If they continue to chase you, you can gain a little bit more distance by continually moving and then teleporting. So you can use that move to get away very quickly. If they turn around to follow the Banshees, don't teleport. You've already cleared the distance by faking them out. This is an amazing ability because you can use it in such a misdirecting fashion. An enemy has to make a judgment call. And whatever call they make, you usually have enough time to say, okay, they made that call, time to change up. Not only that, but because the Haunting Wave does damage, if you're firing it behind you at the enemy chasing you and they're on a mount, you dismount them. So there are so many things you can use this for that are absolutely fantastic. I bring up the fact that you can't outrun them, though, because of this being able to cast it twice. Because I don't want you to think that, oh, okay, well, I can just run, cast it, and then run again. You're not going to get a lot out of it that way. So really what you would be using this for is maybe teleporting past a wall and then teleporting back somewhere else if you need to get somewhere quickly. Probably not the best one. I've used it. It's pretty nice. It's just maybe you could use it for chasing combined with which one was it? It was yeah, here we go. Ranger's Ambush. Refills your charges. So if you're holding down your Q and you fire all your Withering Fire shots and then you teleport with the Haunting Wave just to get it refreshed, consider this almost like Vala's build, where you can refresh Hungering Arrow on Volt and then get 2 stacks of Volt. It's very similar, only you have to use the Wailing Banshees, the Haunting Wave, sorry. You have to use that immediately because you only have a 2-second window. So you could use it for that. Cold Embrace is another talent at this level. A Shadow Dagger will make enemies vulnerable, taking 25% more damage. But the range on Shadow Dagger is reduced by 25%. That's kind of important. This is very powerful, and in fact, one of the reasons why I think she had a little bit of overpoweredness to her, because she's a specialist that has these really strong anti-hero abilities, a very strong anti-hero kit. Since you can throw out that dagger and it spreads, you can put vulnerability on an entire enemy group with this. That's strong. And I've seen this work to a very, very powerful effect. A group that used some stunning with, say, a Nubarak, and then had the follow-up with Sylvanas doing the Cold Embrace, and then the damage amplification was everywhere. The entire team got it, and then they just bursted the entire team down. You combine that with the Silencing Arrow to stop them from getting away. You've got a pretty powerful anti-player combo kit here. And I'm thinking they might have to maybe readjust with this. It's very powerful. It does reduce the range. I mean, that is something you have to keep in mind. So if I hit that W, you can see it goes here to the end. If I get this, it actually takes away a large amount of that range. So there is that, but I'm not sure it's quite enough of a downside to warrant it because of the fact it can add vulnerability. But this is also a way to shut down lanes like nothing else. You throw vulnerability on an entire lane, and then especially if you're going to combine that with the black arrows exploding. You've just added vulnerability with the dagger, and then they're exploding, taking even more damage. You will, again, this is something she does very well. She blows up lines of creep. It is what she does. She is amazing at that. Other two talents at this level, nothing too fantastic. She gets her own kind of movement speed buff here with Will of the Forsaken. Not only does it give you a 30% movement speed for 3 seconds, but it makes you unstoppable, meaning you cannot be affected by crowd control. It is also a cleanse. Usually Unstoppable will cleanse you as well. So if you're stunned or stuck, you can use Will of the Forsaken to remove any crowd control, gain a 30% movement speed buff for 3 seconds, and get your ass out of there. That's not too bad when you consider movement speed on a mount is 40%, so that's not quite mount speed, but it's enough to usually escape other heroes. So if you really need it, that's a sprint button. It's a sprint button plus a cleanse, so it's stronger than sprint, which again, it's kind of stronger than the thing assassins get. Assassins usually get sprint, and it's very odd. It's just very odd. I still like her. I like her kit. I just think there needs to be a little balancing changes here and there to get her in the right spot. Lastly, she has blood for blood here at this rank. This is, again, pretty standard. You take 15% of an enemy hero's maximum health, you give it to yourself, and you reduce their movement speed by 30%. So really strong assassin abilities here on her, quite honestly. All right, I think I've injected maybe a little bit too much of opinion on this one when it comes to Sylvanas. Please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section regarding that, by the way. I'm always kind of evaluating how I do this, and a lot of your viewer feedback has actually changed the way I do this, including the inclusion of skins and things like that, since this is an all-inclusive look at a character. The poke quotes was something I just added myself for later. No one's really said they don't like those, so I've been adding those. As a matter of fact, it seems like some people have liked those because they like the references that they can see there. So again, I look at feedback there. All right, not quite done, so I apologize, but let's be honest, the last two talents at level 20 are not anything super special. Bolt of the Storm is a teleport to a nearby location. A lot of characters get that. I would say the only real thing to talk about here is Fury of the Storm. Normally I wouldn't say anything major about Fury of the Storm because, well, it's Fury of the Storm, but it has changed the way the mechanic works. It used to be where you would attack and it would bounce to all nearby heroes for 50% of the damage. Well, it's been buffed significantly and given a cooldown. So it's got a 5-second cooldown, and your next basic attack deals an additional 200 damage to the target you hit, and then does 500 damage to all nearby minions and mercenaries.
The moment is
Previously, though, Fury of the Storm would bounce to heroes, so that's why it could also be useful in fights. Fury of the Storm is now pretty much an anti-mercenary thing. Now, it doesn't say it doesn't do the additional damage to heroes. So let's just kind of see 163, 163. I'm just waiting for it to proc again. Okay, it looks like it does hit heroes for the additional damage. But this is mainly an anti-minion creep thing, because just watch what happens when I hit this guy. Maybe when I get it back? There we go, come on. There. Lots of damage to the creep line. So that's really what Fury of the Storm has turned into. Not that it really wasn't used for that before, but it really has lost its ability to bounce to heroes. So it's a really interesting choice, I would really say, for Sylvanas. If you're going to get the arrow, might as well modify the arrow, because that 50% additional damage and doubling of the silence, you just can't really pass off. I mean, even if you don't hit it that often, if you hit it even once, it's amazing power. I'd have to suggest this. And quite honestly, if you're going to get possession, which at this point may not be recommended, you're going to want Dark Lady's Call anyway, because you're going to want it for taking out mercenaries. So really, I don't see the other two being that great. I mean, unless you're having problems with escaping, and then you might want to get Bolt. It would be the other thing. They're all kind of good, but I just really think the modifiers for the ultimate are better. I just really want to see Possession kind of get a punch in the arm, as it were, made much more better, is what I would like to see, quite honestly. Alright, well that does it for the abilities and talents. I have no idea how long I've rambled on, but again, hopefully you found this one useful, and please do let me know what you feel about the interjection of the opinions more so on this one. I've added a little bit in the past. I feel like I added a lot more on this one, and I'd like to know how you guys feel about that.
Done.
So, now that we're done here, we're going to go ahead and go on with the poke quotes for Sylvanas Windrunner. Please enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
What are we if not slaves to this torment? We are the Forsaken. Do that again, and you'll pull back a stump. Time flies like an arrow. Flesh flies like carrion. Fast is fine, but accurate is final. You have no idea how tough it is to do this in heels. Good thing my nerve endings rotted away. I have no time for games, yet I always seem to be in them. Everyone knows the Undercity has the best Hallows Eve parties. The wrath of the Lich King was nothing. Wait until you see the wrath of the Banshee Queen. No, I'm not going to sing for you. I'm a heartless undead ruler, not a music box. I thought I was the only one who'd been murdered by a cruel man, raised as a powerful but horrible abomination, subsequently crowned myself queen and dedicated my subjects to orchestrating my vengeance. But then I met Kerrigan. Look, I've been a high elf, a banshee, and an undead high elf. But I've never been a night elf. I don't do bouncy. No, I was never in Night Ranger. But I have an all-dead girl group called Banshee. Does anyone else hear that buzzing? Ugh, what the hell is that smell? Is that still me?